Today I'm going to blow your mind with a story that'll make you look at every elevator ride completely differently. Right now, at this very moment, you're probably using something made by a family that exploited 55,000 slave laborers during World War II. This family didn't just control the steel industry, they armed Hitler, helped build his gas chambers, and here's the absolute kicker. After the war ended, not only did they get a full pardon, but they also kept their billions. I'm talking about the absolutely insane story of the Krupp family, literal Nazi war criminals who are still in business today, making money hand over fist. Now, when I say these people were powerful, I mean ridiculously powerful. At their peak, the Krupps were among the world's leading steel makers and arms manufacturers. They were so influential that from their massive mansion in Essen, Germany, this family hosted emperors, kings, and world leaders, like it was just another Tuesday afternoon. Think about this for a second. Industrialists, politicians, army generals, and heads of state from around the globe came to negotiate contracts with the Krupps. These weren't small business deals either. We're talking about agreements that would literally shape the course of wars and entire national economies for decades. Kaiser Wilhelm I once called Krupp a national institution. Let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't just some company. This business had become so deeply woven into Germany's identity that it was literally considered part of the country itself. Krupp represented Germany's industrial might and military ambition on the world stage. And get this, their reach and reputation was so absolutely massive that during World War I, almost every major army was using Krupp products. I'm not exaggerating here. Their guns, shells, and armor were being deployed on all sides of the conflict. Think about the business genius of that. You're literally selling weapons to everyone, regardless of which side they're fighting for. But here's where it gets even more insane. When World War I ended and Germany was left in complete ruins, did the Krupp empire collapse like you'd expect? Absolutely not. They saw this devastation as another golden opportunity and expanded even further. The scale of what they built became absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking about a company that owned 87 industrial complexes, controlled over 110 firms, and held major stakes in 142 other corporations, and that's just within Germany itself. But wait, it gets bigger. Internationally, they had operations running in nearly every single European country, owning more than half the shares of 41 foreign plants, and holding large stakes in another 25 companies across the continent. We're talking about a level of global industrial domination that would make today's tech giants absolutely jealous. Few families in recorded history have ever commanded such massive global industrial power, and even fewer had the cold calculation to turn their entire country's crisis and suffering into personal leverage for their own benefit. But that's exactly what the Krupps had mastered to an absolute art form. Now here's something that should absolutely shock you. During World War II, even Adolf Hitler himself gave this family cautious respect. The Führer personally stepped in to ensure that the Krupp family retained complete control of their massive empire. He issued a formal decree making them basically untouchable, completely exempt from the many wartime restrictions and regulations that were being imposed on other wealthy families. Here's what should absolutely terrify you about this whole story. The Krupp Empire survived the complete collapse of the Third Reich, and they never actually went away. They just got smarter about hiding in plain sight. They simply changed their name and kept operating like nothing happened. I guarantee you've used their products without even knowing it. Ever stepped into an elevator in a hotel or office building? Ridden on a cruise ship? Been to a hospital for treatment? Chances are incredibly high that you were using products made by their company. They're now called ThyssenKrupp, and they're making elevators, industrial equipment for ships, hospitals, factories. You literally name it, they probably make it. This is a multi-billion-dollar global corporation operating in dozens of countries, and most people have absolutely no idea about the dark history behind that corporate logo. But to understand how literal war criminals became respectable businessmen making billions today, we need to go way back to where this nightmare all began. Because what's going to surprise you even more is that this family wasn't even German to begin with. The Krupps actually started out as Dutch plague profiteers, and their origin story is absolutely ruthless. When the Black Death pandemic hit Europe, while normal people were fleeing in terror or dying in massive numbers, Krupp saw nothing but dollar signs. This guy was literally buying up land from fleeing families for pennies on the dollar while they were running for their lives. That kind of absolutely soulless opportunism would become the family's trademark for centuries to come. They never let human suffering get in the way of making money. Fast forward a few generations to 1811, and we meet Friedrich Krupp, who took this family tradition to the next level. This man was secretly selling high-quality steel to both Napoleon and the Russian Tsars who were actively fighting against Napoleon. Think about the calculation behind that. He was literally profiting from both sides of a massive European war. Friedrich set up a steel factory in Essen in 1811. Crucible steel was cutting-edge tech, carbon-rich, exceptionally pure, incredibly strong. The British closely guarded the process, but Friedrich became obsessed with cracking that secret. His early attempts nearly bankrupted him, but he saw opportunity in the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon's continental blockade cut Europe off from British goods. Friedrich stepped in to fill that gap, selling high-quality steel for cannons to both Napoleon and Russian Tsars, going against German interests for pure profit. The problem? The process was too expensive. When Friedrich died in 1826, he left behind debt and what seemed like a dying dream. But his son Alfred completely changed everything with one brilliant yet absolutely evil insight. Wars were getting deadlier and more destructive, and someone was going to have to supply all that deadly equipment. Why not them? At the famous 1851 London exhibition, Alfred unveiled a revolutionary cast steel cannon that made literally every other weapon on Earth completely obsolete overnight. Orders started flooding in from 46 different nations around the world. And here's the twisted part. Many of those countries would soon be using those exact same Krupp cannons against each other in future. Conflicts. During his peak, Alfred employed an incredible 75,000 workers and lived like an emperor in a massive 300-room mansion. This guy was eccentric, obsessively secretive, and absolutely tireless, often working through entire nights to perfect his steel casting techniques. But Alfred had something his father Friedrich completely lacked: truly remarkable business sense and strategic thinking. Alfred realized early on that the family couldn't rely on just selling basic steel bars forever. That was a commodity business with razor-thin margins. So instead, he made a smart pivot to railway equipment, which was experiencing explosive growth as railroads expanded across Europe and America. Then came his absolute light bulb moment: military applications. Newspapers called him Alfred the Great, or the Cannon King. He didn't just sell locally, like his father, he sold to anyone offering good prices. Long before modern marketing existed, he understood reputation could sell as well as quality. His 1851 cast steel cannon at London's Crystal Palace stunned onlookers. Stronger, more accurate, more reliable than anything existing. 2 decades later, his guns proved decisive when Prussia fought France. Krupp artillery easily outperformed French bronze cannons. Alfred inherited a tiny workshop with 4 employees and transformed it into a global powerhouse, employing 75,000 workers by his death in 1887. He'd armed 46 nations and reshaped European power balance. His son, Friedrich Alfred, was different: a cold, calculating politician disguised as a businessman. Under his leadership, Krupp built close relationships with Germany's major banks. Bankers joined Krupp's board. Krupp directors sat in banks. A German business magazine warned, the 300 men who today govern Germany economically will be reduced to 50, to 25, or even fewer. Krupp became first among equals. Friedrich befriended Kaiser Wilhelm II, giving the family aristocratic aura. Meanwhile, their old rival August Thyssen stayed Republican, despising hereditary privilege and refusing to cozy up to the Kaiser. When Friedrich died without male heirs, succession passed to his son-in-law Gustav, who took the Krupp name. As World War I erupted, Krupp factories ran day and night producing artillery, shells, armor. By war's end, 400 million marks profit, about 1.75 billion today. Post-war chaos created more opportunity. Germany was supposed to disarm under the 1919 Treaty of Versailles, but Krupp continued designing weapons secretly, disguising them as agricultural machinery. Harsh treaty terms weakened smaller German firms, while big trusts like Krupp and Thyssen grew stronger. To secure their position, they backed an upstart named Adolf Hitler. Germany was broken, politically divided, humiliated by reparations, terrified of communism. Hitler promised order, nationalism, military revival, exactly what spoke to Krupp's longing for restored pride and weapon demand. Gustav Krupp began quietly financing Hitler and the Nazi Party. Fritz Thyssen made similar gambles. Both became major financial backers in Hitler's rise, pouring funds behind the 1933 terror election securing Hitler's grip. When World War II began, Gustav's son Alfred took over. The war became another massive windfall. The regime eliminated Jewish industrialists, allowing Krupp to absorb their assets. Robert Rothschild refused to sign over holdings to Krupp. He was sent to Auschwitz to die. To meet wartime demand, Alfred used slave labor, extermination through work. His factories exploited 55,000 forced laborers, including 18,000 prisoners of war and 6,000 concentration camp inmates. Many were young women whose heads were shaved in crosses before being worked to death. Fritz Thyssen, meanwhile, grew horrified and broke with the Nazis, fleeing to Switzerland. Hitler seized the Thyssen fortune, revoked his citizenship, and sent him to Dachau concentration camp. At war's end, both dynasties faced Nuremberg trials. Alfred Krupp was sentenced to 12 years and property forfeiture. But by 1950, shifting Cold War politics brought him a full U.S. pardon. His holdings were restored, and within a decade he rebuilt the empire. His fortune surpassed $1 billion, CSS $13.4 billion today. Thyssen fared worse, ordered to hand over 15% of assets to victim restitution funds. Same 1,930 seconds gamble, completely different outcomes, but karma eventually struck. During West Germany's 1966-67 recession, Krupp faced $600 million in debt, ACD, largest of any German company. Bankers took control, ending the House of Krupp. Alfred's only son Arndt wanted no part, renouncing inheritance rights. Alfred died in 1967. The dynasty became just another corporation. Arndt chose Playboy life, drifting through luxury and scandal, dying childless and in debt, despised by workers whose fathers built the legacy. In the ultimate twist of irony, the great Krupp empire was eventually merged with their old rival Thyssen in 1997. The two companies that had spent decades competing to arm Germany and profit from war now existed under the exact same corporate logo. Today, ThyssenKrupp operates as a massive global corporation in 78 different countries worldwide. You've probably ridden in their elevators dozens of times without ever knowing that you're literally standing inside equipment built by the corporate descendants of Hitler's primary arms dealer. The Krupp family name eventually died out, but here's what's really important. The fortune lived on and continues to grow today. With enough money and the right political connections, you can literally get away with mass murder on an industrial scale. Alfred Krupp used 55,000 slave laborers. He built weapons specifically designed for genocide, and he died a billionaire with almost no real consequences for his actions. This story reveals the dark reality of how corporate empires operate and hide their foundations. How many other major companies that we interact with every single day have similar skeletons buried deep in their past? How many other billionaire families built their wealth directly on the suffering and death of others? This is exactly the kind of knowledge that separates truly informed people from everyone else. Understanding how power and wealth really work in our world. Not the sanitized fairy tale version they teach in schools, but the brutal reality of how things actually operate. If this story opened your eyes to the dark reality of corporate power, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more eye-opening content. Check out my deep dive into the Rockefeller Empire next, another family that built incredible wealth through highly questionable means. Remember everyone, knowledge is true power, and power builds real wealth. The more you understand how the game is really played, the better positioned you'll be to win it. Stay hungry and stay informed.